spanning the generations. This year, this race captured the imagination before the green flag had even flown. Crowds that have not been seen, well, not even before COVID and the interruption there, to be honest. The grid was packed, the campsites were packed, the grandstands were full to overflowing. Thousands of people walking up on the day on Saturday. Was it the Ferrari effect? We know what it can do in other races around the world. It's everybody's at least second favourite brand. They've been involved in motorsport for such a long time and built their reputation upon it. Well, if it was that, it worked. If it was the fact that it was one of the strongest GT3 fields that has ever been assembled here on the Nürburgring Nordschleife, over 30 cars in the top class. The promise of decent weather over an Ascension Day holiday weekend. Well, you can't actually factor that in because we would never have put any money on that earlier in the week. Whatever the reason was, the crowds came from here in Germany and from much further afield. You tuned in your tens of thousands to the free uninterrupted world feed for the build-up, the action, the atmosphere, and enthralling two qualifying sessions, top qualifying sessions on Friday that saw ultimate drama, incident and accident. And as the cars set off on their formation lap, the fans, as tradition dictates, out on the side of the track. Green is the new hell. It's the old hell as well. It's been the green hell for a very, very long time. The Dacia Logan, fan favourite, 118 in the SP3 category, up against the revised, rebuilt Manta that was a burned out Hulk at this time last year. Mercedes-Benz locking out the front row and following the Audi pace car to the line. Everything possible as the red lights went to green, and from the very moment that happened, the intent was clear from David Pittard, drafting behind the green hell AMG and then pulling out to make it three across the track. Lamborghini, AMG and Ferrari squeezing through the first corner, and that really set the tone right there that Ferrari weren't here and Frickadelli weren't here just to make up the numbers. They were playing at the front of the field with the big names and there to be taken seriously. The early part of the race saw some frenetic battling. Up to second on the long drag down the Dottinger Höhe. The Ferrari slippery through the air and going past the special paintwork, and it was paintwork, on the AMG of Raffaele Marciello. For a while, it was AMG and AMG. They gave us some great running. The 2, the 3, and the 4 AMGs at various stages. Johnny Palmer called them the traffic light AMGs. Red, yellow, and green. That's going to stick as well. Not really Audi's weekend. The cars look good, particularly in parts, but they just missed the setup window maybe. But it was Porsche who will be most disappointed. A brand new GT3 car this year with the arrival of the 992 body shape to GT3 International Racing. It has to be said that early on we were worried, JP, about trying to build up the Ferrari too far. How can this last? Will it last? Is this flattering to deceive us? Because in everybody's mind there was still that thought of the reliability and the unfamiliarity of the team with the car, albeit a lot of Rinaldi influence, but the car just kept pounding round.
It did. And never really let up the pace either. So to be able to continue to push on quick lap after quick lap, and avoid any drama. Sometimes it's not of your own making, but the one big hiccup was that puncture 6 laps in to a Nicky Katzberg stint, but incredibly it happened in the penultimate sector, so he only lost about a minute and was able to pit after 6 laps, and they just swallowed that into an otherwise perfect pit stopping system. Lamborghini also had their dramas though. That was another quick Italian car, but unfortunately for the Evo 2 car, that also suffered from a puncture, and again didn't quite have the pace all the way around the track like the 296 did.
Local teams filling the local radio and TV and press, but the 911 Manthey Air Porsche was a little out of sorts. All the Porsches were. They had a lot to deal with changes in BOP. And Kevin Estre going into the wall was just an absolute perfect representation of how their week had been going. The traffic lights were turned to amber for a while with the number 4 car leading out. BMW Junior team, they had their moment in the sun as well, right up to, in fact, sunset. That BMW Junior team, the Shell Helix car, had run well, and they had their plan for overnight to leave Neil Verhagen to get a good rest and bring him back fresh in the morning. Ultimately, the car didn't get to that point in the race in a state that was competitive.
Similar to what happened to one of the Manfilter Mercedes a couple of years ago, when an innocuous incident, a spin as it turned out to be for Dan Harper as a result of a puncture, then did further damage, spinning into the gravel trap at Brunchen. I'm not sure Dan Harper knew entirely all about that, but it wasn't until Max Hesse took over about 30 minutes later when something far more significant broke on the BMW. And I remember Maxi Goertz taking charge of a Mercedes probably 3 or 4 years ago, and again 45 minutes into his stint, a steering arm broke and pitched him into the wall. Not his fault at all. Sometimes you have to pay attention to what might have happened to a racing car in the last couple of hours, because it won't bite until much later on.
Sunset just before 20 minutes past 9 in the evening, and that was when it looked like fate had bitten the Fricatelli Ferrari. Bad luck for the puncture, weren't unique in that. Good luck that it was so close to the pit lane, and their strategy, which had been meticulously planned, well, it was within the bounds of what they had set themselves. The night plays tricks on the Nordschleife. The onboard images spectacular, the speeds unwavering. In fact, the fastest lap of the race was set in the darkness hours, but not everyone was 100% accurate or 100% in concentration. And as we always know here, small mistakes, big consequences. The party continues, as it always does here, in good spirits. And all the way through the race, we were there or thereabouts on record distance pace. It needed to be 6.66 laps per hour. And at the front of the field, Maro Engel making a tiny mistake going past the Songfifth Cayman. Right rear suspension issue. Changed. New shocker went on there, but not too long afterwards, the team withdrew the car for safety reasons. On into the night. The Fricatelli number 30 went on into the night.
Yeah, nothing really changed. I mean, if anything, the Ferrari got faster, and just after daybreak, the 20 machine really turned up the wick and managed the fastest lap of the race. They cycled through their drivers. I'm not sure, it wasn't until the very end when they just changed the rotation very slightly. Missed out Felipe Fernandez-Laza as the recently moved to gold driver. But David Pittard, quite clearly, given a massive responsibility this weekend to qualify the car, to start the car, and reserved as the final driver in the race.
Audis fell by the rear side too, went in an accident where there'd been some fluid put down on the Grand Prix track. I have to say, Earl Bamber's double in the middle of the night was absolutely outstanding. That was when the lead stretched. They used the Kiwi very, very well indeed, and made sure that the advantage that they felt that he could give them was played at the right time. All part of the strategy, of course. Who's in the car we're racing? Can we put a driver in to put pressure on them? Earl Bamber pulled out something like a minute and a half, almost to 2 minutes in those double stints that he did, just over 2.5 hours. But even at daybreak, the race had plenty of action still to come. A little bit of fog, but nothing like the intervention that we've had from weather down through the years. Was this the perfect race in terms of weather at the Nordschleife? Must have been close to it. Relatively small attrition race in the first half of the race. Yes, people had had problems, but there were lots of cars still circulating, which meant that traffic was always going to be an issue. It can help you, it can hinder you, it giveth, it taketh away. By the time we got into the last third of the race, it became clear that the battle was between a couple of Ferraris in the top 6, some BMWs, and a couple of AMGs. And really that distilled down, Johnny Palmer, to the battle that went all the way at the end between the number 30 Ferrari and the number 98 BMW. David Pittard was psyched up, fist pumping his crew to take it to the end. Klaus Abelin couldn't take the stress of watching the end of the race. I think a brilliantly managed race as well as anything else from Fricatelli, from Ferrari and from Rinaldi.
They had an eye to the checkered flag from something like 6 hours out, as so many of the really professional teams do. And this was confirmation as the Ferrari came out of Hohenrhein. Walter Hornung, the race director, greeting a brand new winner in this race for Klaus Abelin, who has run cars in this 24 hours, year after year after year, but changed manufacturer. A big headline as he did. But what about the celebrations? Finally, he manages to win this wonderful event.
Forza Ferrari, finally it's Fricatelli, absolutely Abelin. A win on the Nordschleife for the man from round the corner and up the hill. The 24 hours for 2023. The TotalEnergies ADAC 24 hours of the Nürburgring stays close to home with Fricatelli winning the big race over the Ascension Day weekend. Where to next for that team? Anywhere they want right now.